Hey guys, welcome back. So we have successfully installed our node in Cardano CLI. So the next thing we want to do here is to actually run our node. And we will do that in a few minutes. Just before we do that, we need to create a directory for our configuration files. Our node requires 3 configuration files for it to run. So we need to download a basic form of them, and later on we can do some tweaks to them so that we can customize them. But what are these configuration files? Well, number one, we have the topology file. The topology file is important because it will tell your node to which other nodes in the network connect to. This means that it will contain like a list of all other relay nodes in the network that you want to connect to. It will consist of the IP address and the port for that particular node to be contacted, and a few other information. But those are the 2 key pieces here, and it can grow as long as you want. But at the beginning, the default file that we are going to download will only contain 1 relay node, or actually it's a DNS, so that it will connect to any of the available relay nodes that IHK has in a cluster for us to connect to, so that we will download that topology file. Then we have the Genesis file. The Genesis file is important because it actually tells our node to which blockchain to connect to, okay? So it contains some very basic information about the protocol and about the protocol parameters itself, the stake distribution at the beginning of the blockchain, like the original delegators, the original balances of the first addresses at Genesis, and other important stuff. So this is important. And also the configuration file, the config file. This config file will allow us to configure our node, and it will allow us to fine-tune our node into the sense of it will allow you to be very detailed about what information you want to extract from your node, meaning I'm talking about logging, for example. It will allow us to configure what kind of information we want about the node behavior or about the blockchain. And it will also allow us to, for example, configure the ports for Grafana, for Prometheus, if you are doing some kind of monitoring of your node. You want to set up a port for that data to be available for Prometheus, also with AKG. And also with, it's also very important that this configuration file makes reference of the Genesis file, so it is listed inside of the configuration file. So it is also important for us to be able to connect to the proper blockchain, okay, to the blockchain that we want to connect to. So we have a section here called Understanding Your Configuration Files. Please take a look on them, because there are like a bunch of parameters, and you want to understand what each parameters or what each aspect of the configuration file and the Genesis file and the topology file refers to. So please take a look on this article and let us know if you have any questions. Right now, what I'm going to do here is to download those files and try to be ready to connect our node to the blockchain, okay? So the first thing we want to do here is connect to your server or open up a terminal if you are on VirtualBox. And I'm here in my Ubuntu server. And what I'm going to do here is to download my files. But before I download it, I'm here at home. So as you can see, I'm here at home where I have Cardano node, GHC, and Libsodium. And I've also created this other directory where I am going to be downloading keys later on. But right now, what we want is to create a new directory. Let me just make it here in home, and let me call it relay. Let me move to relay, And as you can see, it's empty because we just created it. But let me just fix that. We need to download those files, and you can do it by simply grabbing this command here. It is actually 3 commands. We are using wget to actually download each of those files that we need. So if you copy and paste the entire list of 3 commands, it will download the 3 files. If I do ls here, as you can see, I now have the 3 files that I had mentioned before downloaded into my relay folder. Okay, so let me just clear my screen so that I am not at the bottom of the screen, and actually I can grab it a little bit here. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do here is, well, take a look on this article that will allow you to have a better understanding on what these files refer to and what they do. But the next thing I want to do here is have a quick win. I want to connect to the blockchain, to the network, and to do that, I'm going to start using the Cardano node. And before I connect to it, let me just give you a quick overview of how you can investigate what commands you have available and what subcommands and what parameters those subcommands take. For example, we have Cardano node and Cardano CLI. Those are like different programs but work very similar. If you use Cardano node, it will give you the available options for this command. For now, we are going to use Cardano node run. And as you can see here, it displays the list of options of parameters that this command takes. And let's see what it takes. It takes a topology file. You say -- topology, and you include a file path. A path to the file that you are using as a topology file. Then you specify the database path. So this is what you are telling the node where to store the database. So this will create a directory where the database will be stored. And when you start your node, it will create a node socket, and you are telling here with this parameter where this node socket should be in your computer. Okay, then you have a sort of parameters, a list of parameters that are specific for core nodes or block producing nodes, because they refer to delegation certificates, signing keys, Shelley keys, verification keys, operational certificates. Those parameters are specific for block producing nodes. Okay, now any node, regardless of being a passive or an active node, a block producer node, will require to be run with a host address and a port. So this will be like your public IP, and the port will be the port into which this node will be contacted. Okay, and finally we have the configuration file, which is like the path to the file that you are using as config file. And finally, you have a couple of options that will allow you to configure your node to shut down in advance. Okay, now I just messed it up a little bit because I accidentally copied it below, but let me just come here. So we have the Cardano node run. Let me just copy it, not directly into the terminal, but in a notepad that I always have by my side, because I need to customize some things here. And I need to come here to check my public IP. Let me just grab it here and paste it there. And I am using this port 3001. You can choose whatever port you want. In this case, I'm using 3001. And let me just come here and paste it so that I can now run it successfully so that I can run it successfully. Okay, so if I press enter here, I will be able to run a node. This time will be like a node in a simple view. Later on we will learn about what is called the live view, but let me just press enter, and as you can see here, my node is already starting to synchronize with the blockchain. It is okay if at the beginning you see some errors. It's kind of normal. Your node will try to connect to the relay nodes that are listed in the topology file, which are some of the IHK nodes that are in a cluster. But the point here is that it may not be successful at the beginning, so it may try to connect a couple of times. It's normal if you see a couple of errors there. But after a few minutes at most, you will need to see something like this: chain extended new tip. This means that you are downloading blocks from your peers. You are getting a copy of the entire blockchain here. So this is very important that you see chain extended new tip and a new tip and a new tip. So at the beginning, when you are synchronizing, it is normal that you are moving very fast, and then once your node has synchronized with the blockchain, it will have a slower pace because blocks are not produced that fast. Okay, but at the beginning, when you are just downloading the blocks that are already in the history, it will be super fast. Okay, so this is what we are seeing right now. Let me just for a second stop my node here with Control C, because I want to make some tweaks to this configuration file so that I have a nicer view of my node. Let me just ls again so that we can see here that I have created this database folder as specified here in the Cardano node run command. And just for the sake of db ls, I have here, this is inside the db, and here is the node socket that we have mentioned before. Okay, this node socket is very important because this is what will allow us to connect to the blockchain to actually query things, to submit transactions, and do other stuff with the as part of the network. Okay, so just for you to know. But we were going to make some tweaks to our config file so that we can have a nicer view here. So let me just use Nano to edit my config file. So here we have like information about the blockchain, the protocol, the Genesis file. Later on you will see, when we are in mainnet, you will see different numbers here because it will be a little bit different. But the next part is about tracers. In tracers, what these tracers do is collect information about what is going on with your node and with the blockchain, and these work like switches that you can turn on and off depending on what information you want to fetch or what information you want to be displayed or collected about your node. One of the things you have to do to use the live view is come here to trace block fetch decisions and change it to true. Remember, this works like switches that you can turn on and off. Let me just turn on that, and I can come here to view mode, and let me use live view. Control O to save and Control X to exit. And what I have done here is I have changed the view mode of the node when it is running. So now when I come here and grab this command again, and press enter, now I have a different view of my node. This is called the live view, and it presents very interesting information about the blockchain and about the node behavior. After a few seconds or minutes, you should see that it is synchronizing. Right now, you just see that epochs and slots are in 0, but after a few seconds, it should increase their numbers and make it like show you that it is synchronizing. There it is. So it will be super fast at the beginning, as we mentioned before, because we are downloading blocks from the blockchain, we are synchronizing. Once it is in sync, this CPU usage will stabilize and go way below. Right now at the beginning, when we are synchronizing, it may take up to 2 full cores, so meaning it can reach 200% of usage. But once it is synchronized and it has downloaded and it's just keeping it in sync, it will be below 2% as an average, right? This is why also, as we are synchronizing, this is why you see this much activity here on the writing and in the network activity. But once you are synchronized, everything settles down and it is just like in a steady, smooth run. And as you can see here, it displays like the average of the CPU usage. I think it is like the last minute or something like that. And as you can see here, we are now at epoch 28, slot 9045. The block number is 25947. So this blockchain has 25,948 blocks. You can see chain density. This part below here is relevant information for when you are running this node as a core node or as a block producer node. It will tell you how many blocks you have minted, how many slots you have in this epoch to lead, and if you have missed any slots and information like that. So it tells you the version of the node you are running, the latest commit. So this is the exact version of the node that you are running. And also your platform, then port where you are running your node. And so this is it basically. If you press letter P, as in Peter or as in peers, it will give you the list of peers that you are connected to. In this case, we are connected to a couple of relays of the Cardano, of the IOHK cluster. And this also tells you the uptime of your own node, okay? So this is what you have. When you later on configure your own topology file to connect to other relays apart from the IOHK relays, you will see that you have here a bigger list of peers connected, okay? So this is very useful information. If you want to go back to your normal view, you press escape. And let me just grab this a little bit down. If you press letter L, it gives you the light theme. Letter D is the dark theme. And press Q if you want to quit the node. Okay, let me just clear again. And there we go. Let me just grab this again and start my node here in the live view. And I will have it like here by my side. But right now I cannot do anything else with my terminal, with my session, because it is used by the node itself. So one of the things you want to do here is to create another session, to start another session to connect to your server, so that you can actually interact with your node. And to do that, let me just establish another SSH connection here. There you go. And I am connected also to my server. This is one of the options, having a different session. If you are using VirtualBox, for example, you would use also another terminal, opening a window. But there's a nice feature that, a nice program that you just installed at the beginning, which is Tmux. Tmux is a terminal multiplexer, which will allow you to have like multiple windows within the same session. This is very handy. For example, if you do Tmux, it will start Tmux. And Tmux will allow you to have, as I mentioned, different windows within the same terminal, within the same session. And to do that, you press Ctrl B and the quote sign, in this case is Shift 2. And as you can see, I have created a split panel here so that I have two windows, and I could use something here or have something here. But to change from the bottom to the top, I need to press Ctrl B and the up arrow, and then this brings me here. So I could have my node running here and my session, my terminal session where I interact with the node, where I use commands, like in the bottom, and that will be very, very handy. Let me just actually do that. To do that, let me just quit that session here that I have above. Let me just terminate that, and let me start my node again here. Let me just go to cd relay, and let me grab this command again, Ctrl V, and there you have your node running, and you have a terminal here that you can use to interact with your node and to do things with the blockchain. So this is very handy. This is Tmux. I'm leaving here in the materials, in the reference materials, a quick sheet and some information about Tmux, how to use it, some very basic usage. So please take a look on that if you are interested on using Tmux to run your node.